exposed. The haunted Amazon warehouse with 13 sinister rules you won't believe exist. Emma stood at the entrance of the Amazon warehouse, heart racing, a suffocating dread wrapping around her like a shadow. The building loomed over her, a massive hunk of metal and concrete, its sterile exterior reflecting nothing but darkness. "This is for the kids," she whispered to herself, needing that mantra to push her through. The town hailed the warehouse like a savior, offering jobs to the desperate, but she felt a chill from a warning deep inside. As she stepped through the sliding doors, the fluorescent lights buzzed above, draining the color from everything they touched. She was quickly handed a name tag that felt cold against her skin, like a brand that marked her as property of something she didn't fully understand. The air smelled oddly sterile, but it wasn't cleanliness, it was a deep, unsettling emptiness that whispered something wasn't right. In the break room, her eyes were drawn to a crumpled piece of paper tucked beneath a chair. She snatched it up, her fingers trembling slightly. 13 sinister rules, it declared in shaky handwriting. A chill crawled down her spine. Curiosity tugged at her, but she initially scoffed. Surely this was just folk myth meant to scare newcomers. But as she read on, a dread settled in her gut. Rule 1. Never turn your back to the aisles. Rule 5. The whispering voices are not your friends. Each statement felt like a dagger, each word dripping with an ominous promise of consequence. Before she could laugh it off, her thoughts were interrupted by the odd silence around her. Felt like a living thing, pulsating with a slow, sickly heartbeat. She glanced around the break room. Her co-workers stared blankly ahead, hollow-eyed and weary, as if the light inside them had dimmed to mere embers. She could practically hear their souls sighing under the weight of despair, their laughter long replaced by murmurs of fear. Just as quickly, flashes of odd behavior began to illuminate why. The shuffle of boxes moving by themselves, and the laughter distorted echoes that sent shivers tangling down her spine. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Night after night, as the echoes grew louder, co-workers began to vanish one by one, their faces slipping away like shadows at sunset. Emma's heart raced. She tried to shake the thoughts, concentrating instead on the mechanical rhythm of the job. But dread wrapped tighter around her, whispering that fear was everywhere. An unsettling reminder flickered across her mind. The boss's too charming smile felt predatory, lurking beneath the surface like a great white shark in murky waters. She couldn't shake the sensation of being watched, scrutinized, every move observed by unseen eyes. The atmosphere thickened, a suffocating weight that pressed against her chest. The outline of the warehouse felt alive. The flickering lights above sparked with an electric menace, casting shifting shadows that danced just out of sight. What stood behind the shelves? What watched her from the black corners and the depths of indifference? Chills raced over her skin as she glanced at the remains of the last person she could have sworn was just here yesterday. Discarded tools, empty spaces. With each passing week, the oppressive fear became a part of her and urgency clawed at her heart. She could feel the walls closing in, and it terrified her. The laughter, eerie and mocking, was a sound she could never quite place, lurking just beyond her reach. She steeled herself for the inevitable confrontation. Time was running out. A blackout would come. She could feel it in her bones. And when it did, would she find a way to flee before she vanished too? Would she become just another name on that ghostly list? A heavy quiet fell over the warehouse as Emma rounded another corner, the fluorescent lights flickering ominously above her like phantoms teasing from the beyond. She had memorized the so-called 13 sinister rules, with each rule haunting her thoughts like unwanted shadows. Thoughts spiraled, were her co-workers really vanishing? Or was it simply a side effect of the dread that hung in the air like thick fog? Each time she looked into the faces of her peers, She found more vacant stares, fewer smiles. The rustling of cardboard boxes echoed down the aisle and sent her heart racing. To her right, a box fell from a stack, splintering open like a corpse unveiling its insides. It was empty, no sign of products, just a gaping void. Emma approached cautiously, the silence wrapping around her, eager to swallow her whole. "Emma, help us," a voice whispered, soft yet sharp like ice against her spine. She jerked around, instinctively following the sound, but found nothing but shelves filled with rotting cardboard and pitch-dark shadows. "Who's there?" she croaked, her voice failing her. No answer came, just the tap of her heart drumming louder in her ears. The overhead lights buzzed angrily, making the shadows seem like they were reaching for her, clawing to pull her into their depths. Panic tugged at her, forcing her towards the break room. She needed strength. She needed something, anything that felt real. The others would be in there. They had to understand her fear. As she barreled through the door, the room morphed into an unsettling tableau. Her co-workers sat still, eyes wide, faces pale under the stark lighting. "Emma?" one of them whispered, the sound breaking the thick atmosphere like a sledgehammer against glass. "Have you heard them? The whispers? They want us," another murmured, her hands trembling, clutching a wrapper like a lifeline. "What's happening?" Emma's voice cracked, laced with desperation. Everyone turned to her, eyes wide as panic radiated from their expressions. Nobody answered her. Instead, they seemed to be staring past her, into a void she couldn't see. Then, it happened, an explosion of movement outside their walls. An uproar, boxes crashing, distant shouts merging into ghastly laughter. Emma wheeled around in time to see shadows twisting and swirling, morphing into grotesque shapes behind the aisles. A loud crash echoed through the room as a shelf toppled, leaving chaos in its wake. "Get down," she screamed, but no one listened. They seemed entranced, eyes vacant as if under some dreadful spell, their breaths shallow and strained. Emma backed away, feeling the sting of tears at the corners of her eyes. The whispered voices grew louder, venomous and taunting, wrapping around her. They promised anonymity, a fate worse than death, to become yet another lost soul. In sheer instinct, she sprinted toward the exit, heart pounding, not wanting to look back. As she dashed through the aisles, she felt unseen hands reaching for her, brushing against her skin and sending bolts of ice racing through her veins. What were these things? She had known about the sinister rules. Death was a shadow, but being consumed? That was the true horror. Breath coming in ragged gasps, she burst out into the main warehouse floor. The chilling laughter echoed in her ears. She stumbled into an open area, recognizing the layout, the hub of deliveries. But her relief was short-lived. The shadows were thicker here, swirling around like a tempest, and they held her gaze captive. Was it too late to escape? And then she saw it just ahead, a flicker of movement beyond the shadows. Was it a person, or something else entirely? "Come," it called. The voice sounded familiar yet so distorted, chilling her to the very bone. Emma froze. What she thought would be her salvation now stood before her, beckoning with open arms. With her heart racing, she realized. To follow meant intervention, but to stay could seal her fate. What choice would she make? Would the whispers claim her soul, or would she dare to confront whatever darkness awaited her? The shadows flickered, a dance of spirits twisting in the dim light. Emma stood frozen, her mind racing. The voice beckoned her closer, but deep down, a primal instinct screamed to run. The familiar tone tugged at her heart, sweet and soft, but now coated in ice. "Emma, please." The figure stepped forward, revealing a silhouette draped in darkness, face obscured. Her breath hitched as she recognized it, Jessica, her old friend. But something was off. Jessica's eyes were sunken, her skin pallid and stretched tight over bones. She was smiling, but it didn't register as warmth. "Is that really you?" Emma whispered, her voice trembling as the air thickened around her. "What happened to you?" "Come," Jessica repeated, her voice a melody that seemed to echo through the collapsing walls of Emma's sanity. "We can escape together." A part of Emma wanted to believe, to grasp onto that familiar connection. But the longer she stared, the clearer it became. The whispers behind her grew louder, swelling like a tide, drowning out reason. Behind Emma, the chaos of the warehouse erupted into a ghastly panic. Boxes toppled like corpses, twisting limbs of the shadows reaching out as if pained by the light. "They won't let you leave," Jessica cried, voice strained but edged with an eerie cheer. "They need you. You must join us." "No," Emma shouted, dread gripping her gut. "I won't." As if summoned, the shadows surged closer, swirling around Emma with a sudden force. They clawed at her skin with icy fingers, their whispers merging into a deafening roar. She felt them pulling her, and she stumbled backward, fighting against their grip. "Fight them, Emma," a voice hissed, sharp and commanding, pierced through the madness, striking like lightning. She turned to see Eric, another coworker, emerging from the sea of darkness, eyes fierce. "Eric," she cried out, relief mingling with fear. "What is happening?" "They're here because of the rules. We have to break them," he yelled, desperation fueling his words. "Or we'll be lost forever." Emma's mind raced. The rules, the 13 sinister rules. They started as office jokes, then whispers of truth. The unwritten requirements breathed their chilling weight into the air. Never separate. Trust no one. Leave before midnight. But how? She gasped, her pulse pounding in sync with the chaos around them. Find the origin. The heart of this place. Eric insisted. The shadows can't drain the light completely, but we must take the fight to them. Beside them, Jessica's smile twisted into a grimace. "You can't fight what you can't see," she screeched, her voice transforming into a grotesque snarl. "Join us, Emma. This what you want." "No," Emma shouted back, shaking her head furiously. The fear bubbled into rage, a burning need to reclaim her freedom. She locked eyes with Eric, their silent understanding solidifying her resolve. Time was running out. Behind them, the shadows were feeding, gaining strength, growing demonstrably thrilled by their fear. "Let us go," Emma shouted, shoving past the figures, determined to break free of the swirling darkness. She sprinted toward the back of the warehouse, towards the promise of something beyond the chaos, dragging Eric along. They dashed through aisles, heart pounding, breath quickening. The final confrontation was at hand. But as they approached the old freight elevator, the familiar voice thundered once more, echoing chillingly from all directions. "You cannot escape, we are everywhere." Emma's heart sank. The walls seemed to breathe, the very structure groaning under the weight of whatever creature lurked here. Then, as if sensing her desperation, the elevator doors opened with a creak, a glimmer of light spilling into the darkness. Would this be their salvation, or a trap that sealed their fate? With one last look behind them, Emma grasped Eric's hand tightly, knowing they could no longer turn back. "Are you ready?" she asked, uncertainty creeping into her voice. He nodded, determination etched on his face. Together, as they stepped into the light, a shadow loomed larger at their backs, and a sinister laughter echoed from every corner of the warehouse. What awaits them beyond the threshold? Are they walking into salvation or a deeper nightmare? The elevator's light felt like a fragile candle flickering in a gusty storm. Emma squeezed Eric's hand, the warmth of it grounding her despite the chill creeping up her spine. "What if it's a mistake?" she whispered, fear creeping back into her heart. "No turning back now," he replied, a steely resolve behind his voice. With a final breath, they pushed forward, stepping inside the cramped space. As the doors closed with a weary clang, the shadows outside writhed like a living entity, clawing at the metal. Emma pressed her back against the wall, attempting to block out the cacophony of ominous whispers that hinted at their doom. "You can't escape, you're one of us." The elevator jolted, the sudden movement dragging them down with a sickening lurch. Emma glanced up at the flickering overhead light, praying it would not go dark. Each ding of the descending floors was a countdown, a reminder that they had no idea what lay below. "What if we go further into this nightmare?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "We'll take it one step at a time," Eric reassured her, But the edges of his certainty were fraying too. The elevator came to a stop with a jarring thud. The doors creaked open, revealing a vast expanse of darkness that swallowed up the dim light from above. An unsettling silence blanketed everything, broken only by the distant sound of dripping water echoing through the cavernous space. "Stay close," Emma cautioned, their fingers still intertwined as they stepped into the unknown. The ground felt solid but was covered in a thick layer of dust, the kind that hinted at abandonment and secrets buried deep within. "Where do we even start?" Emma murmured, scanning the blackness for any signs of life or death. "There has to be something. A source, a heart, a something to break these rules," Eric replied, his eyes squinting as if willing the darkness to yield its secrets. In the dim light, they spotted a row of old, rusted lockers. One of them stood slightly ajar, an inviting crack that begged for exploration. Emma hesitated, heart racing. Common sense screamed at her to turn back, but desperation overruled caution. "Let us check it out," she urged, pulling Eric toward the lockers. As they reached the locker, the air thickened, and whispering intensified, as if the shadows were leaning in, intent on revealing their fears. Emma took a deep breath, forcing herself to confront whatever lay inside. She swung the locker open, releasing a cloud of dust that enveloped them. Inside, she found tattered papers, old documents scrolling the horrifying history of the warehouse. Each paper detailed the dark rules they had joked about, but there was more. Names, dates, and bloodstains marred the edges. Her eyes widened. These were people who had come before them, victims of the rules. This can't be real," she stammered, the horror sinking deeply into her bones. "Look," Eric pointed to a yellowed paper pinned to the inside, its details scrawled in frantic handwriting. "It mentions an emergency exit, a way to break free from the rules. But it's in the basement." A sudden chill swept through the air, and the locker slammed shut, trapping their hands. Emma yelped, panic rising as shadowy figures began to materialize all around them, their faces masked in anguish. "Join us, become one with the darkness," they chorused, their voices chilling defiant despair. "Get away," Emma shouted, struggling to break free. She was suddenly aware of the conversations that filled the room, warning her of the very fate she was fighting against. With a yank, Eric managed to wrench the locker open, and they stumbled out, hearts racing. "We have to find another way," he urged, urgency flooding his voice as they turned to flee. A cold laugh echoed throughout the chamber. "You can't escape. You're bound by the rules." The shadows surged toward them, a tidal wave of dark intent. Emma's breath hitched. This wasn't over something lurked beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to strike. They raced deeper into the darkness, but the question hung ominously in Emma's mind. What if the deeper they went, the more dangerous it became? Could they uncover the origin of the nightmares? Or had they only sealed their fate by descending further into the abyss? Emma and Eric sprinted into the darkness, their breaths quickening with every panicked step. The only sound was the relentless whispering, echoing off the walls and growing louder as they moved. "You're bound by the rules." The laughter taunted them, mingling with the drips of water, each drop a reminder of the time slipping away. "Over there," Eric shouted, pointing toward the far end of the room where what appeared to be a flicker of light beckoned through the thick shadows. Hope momentarily surged inside Emma, drowning out the horror that surrounded them. But as they approached, the glow twisted, almost mocking, as it flickered off and on like a dying flashlight, sending shadows racing toward them. "Stay close," Emma urged, but her voice was swallowed by the deepening gloom. Fear clawed at her heart, a familiar ache that threatened to paralyze her legs. They reached the source of the light, a single, rusted lantern flickering atop a wooden crate. Emma reached out to grab it, but as her fingers brushed against the metal, the flames surged violently against the walls, revealing grotesque faces, frozen in terror, watching them from within the shadows. "What are they? Are these the victims?" Eric's voice trembled, eyes wide as the horror unfolded. Each face wore a look of despair, their mouths twisted in silent screams, urging them to turn back before it was too late. "Don't look at them," Emma shouted, jerking the lantern away. Its light dimmed slightly as she spun around, searching for another path. We need to find that exit. The chilling laughter erupted again, echoing off the walls, almost drawing nearer. You can't leave. You'll join us soon enough. Shut up, Eric snapped, his voice fierce against the rising panic. We're not like you. As they moved deeper into the cavern, a sudden blast of icy wind rushed past, extinguishing the lantern's flame entirely. They were plunged into darkness, leaving nothing but the echo of their racing hearts and the suffocating silence of the unseen. Emma's pulse drummed in her ears, the darkness pressing in, alive and hungry. Eric, we need to. But before she could finish, a sharp gasp pierced the silence. She turned to find Eric's face illuminated by the faintest glimmer reflecting off the wall, a sleek, silver door standing unexpected in the oppressive gloom, almost hidden in shadows. Is that it? Emma's voice shook. Hope surged once more, but a new fear settled hard in her stomach. Was this mere illusion? Another trap laid by the shadows? Only one way to find out, Eric replied, closing the distance quickly as they approached. An overwhelming dread pressed down on them. The handle of the door was cold to the touch, sending chills up Emma's arm. Her heart raced as she glanced over her shoulder, feeling as if the shadows had crept closer, leaning in to listen. Ready? Eric asked, his breath hitching as he placed his hand on the door. They exchanged a look, both steeling themselves for whatever lay beyond. With a nod, he pulled the door open slowly. An ominous crack broke the silence before swinging wide, revealing not a path to freedom, but another dark chamber filled with whispers of despair. Inside, the flickering of countless candles illuminated the faces of skeletal figures seated in a circle, their hollow eyes fixed on Emma and Eric, expressions frozen in a mixture of sorrow and malicious pleasure. Each candle flickered, casting unsettling shadows that twisted in the newly revealed room, as if to remind them of the rules they had yet to uncover. Emma felt her breath hitch in her throat. What are they doing? Welcome. A raspy voice echoed from the center of the circle, drawing everyone's attention to an ancient-looking tome resting before the figures. The weight of its presence seemed to suffocate the air around them. You've come to join the sacrifice. The realization washed over Emma like ice, clamping down on her heart. How many had tried to escape those very same rules? How many like them wished to break free, only to find themselves bound by an even darker fate? They were trapped in a nightmare. But beneath the rising terror was a flicker of defiance. We will not be your sacrifices, Emma shouted, her voice trembling but resolute. But the figures only smiled wider, their mouths curling in ways that were both inviting and sinister. What if you already are? Whispered the voice, sending a chill down her spine. With horror flooding her senses, Emma's grip on Eric tightened. They had come seeking escape, but now it felt like they had stumbled straight into the heart of it. And just as the circle began to close in, the flickering candles extinguished, leaving them submerged in a darkness colder than they ever imagined. What lay in the depths of their pasts? And would it cost them more than they were willing to pay? Time was ticking, shadows were growing, and the darker rules were just beginning to unfold. Emma's heart pounded deafeningly in her ears as pitch blackness surrounded them. Shadows swarmed, grasping and clawing at the remnants of their hope. She could feel Eric beside her, his breath quick and shallow, mirroring her rising panic. Stay together, she gasped, but her voice was little more than a whisper lost in the abyss. Just as despair began to fold in on themselves, a spark cut through the black. A distant, flickering light glimmered ahead, barely visible but alive, like the last desperate flicker of a dying star. Over there, Emma cried, instinctively grabbing Eric's arm, pulling him forward. They stumbled together, every breath a mix of fear and determination. As they drew closer, the source of the light materialized. A second lantern, this one crackling with energy, casting a warm glow that drew away some of the cold dread of the room. What do we do? Eric's voice trembled, his brow beaded with sweat, reflecting the lantern's glow. Emma's eyes darted over the room's sharp edges, the skeletal figures now obscured in deeper darkness, their haunting gazes still lingering. She had to focus. We use its light. We need to find a way out. As they reached the lantern, Emma lifted it higher, illuminating the cursed chamber around them. The figures remained seated in their circle, unyielding sentinels to the horrors they had yet to confront. The tome, Emma whispered, spotting the ancient book sprawled open in the center, its pages fluttering slightly as if inviting them closer, beckoning them to read the words bound in some dread ink. What if it's trapped? Eric's eyes widened in terror, and she could see the internal struggle battling within him. What if it's a part of the rules? And what if it holds the key? We can't stand here forever. Emma's urgency spiked as a new laughter erupted from the shadows, echoing grotesquely like a wild animal cornered. Eric swallowed hard, then nodded. They moved cautiously toward the tome. The closer they got, the more the air around them thickened, like stepping into molasses. The sigils etched into the pages blurred under the lantern's light, and she could swear she heard whispers weaving through the words, stitching together dark secrets meant to remain hidden. Just as Emma stretched her hand out, another surge of cold wind slammed into them, snuffing the warmth of their lantern and engulfing them in darkness once again. "Quick! Light it again!" Eric shouted, panic slicing through his words. Emma fumbled for the matchbox tucked in her pocket. Fingers trembling, she struck a match, the flame flaring triumphantly. She held it to the lantern. The feeble light illuminated their surroundings again. But that illuminating joy shattered as a chorus of haunting screams erupted from the walls, echoing her name. Emma Maya. The skeletal forms shuddered, their joy twisted and grotesque. They rose slowly, moving unnaturally, their hollow eyes now narrowing, fixating on them. "Join us, dear child," they hissed, their voices like nails on a chalkboard. "Run. We need to run," Emma shouted, and they bolted back down the corridor. The whispers now morphed into chains rattling behind them, the sounds of their past clawing from the depths of the darkness. Each step felt heavier, the shadows chasing cold and malevolent at their backs. Turning corners, they entered another chamber. Here, blood-red candles dripped wax onto the floor, casting eerie shadows of twisted figures that seemed to lounge comfortably in the dark corners. "Where do we go?" Eric panted. Desperation seeped into his voice as he looked from one exit to another. "Anywhere but here," Emma cried, the weight of the tome's secrets suffocating her mind. In her heart, she knew they needed answers. But were the truths worth the cost? Ahead lay a door, slightly ajar, bathed in the faintest light. But as Emma pushed it open, a blood-curdling scream rose from inside. They froze, turned back, shrieked a voice they recognized, the tormented cries of the forgotten ones. Emma glanced at Eric, panic flooding her senses. Could this be the end of their desperate flight, only to discover the darkness within? The next choice loomed before them, each second stretching, laden with dread. What awaited them behind the door? What would they have to face to break the shackles of this horror? They hesitated, hearts pounding, shadows swirling, and the laughter returned, incessantly joyful, wrapping them in a choking embrace. Face your fear or be consumed. The question lingered like a predator poised to strike. Would they find redemption or become part of the dreadful story forever etched into the pages of the ancient tome? Emma's hand hovered over the door handle, the cold metal sending a shiver through her bones. She could hear the muffled cries from within, the desperate pleas of those trapped by the shadows. Eric stood beside her, his breath hitching as he peered into the sliver of light that streamed from the crack. "Do we really want to find out what's behind there?" he whispered, his voice trembling. Emma didn't answer immediately. She could feel the weight of countless eyes boring into her back, the husks of the seated figures now looming closer in her mind. Her heart raced, pumping fear into her veins. "We have to try. We can't keep running like this forever." The door creaked ominously as she pushed it open wider. The screams intensified, visceral and raw, swirling around them like a tempest of anguish that clawed at their sanity. She took a deep breath, bracing herself against the tide of dread that surged forward. Inside, an altar dominated the room, its surface stained with dark blotches that whispered of untold sacrifices. Layer upon layer of chaotic symbols adorned the walls, twisting in a macabre dance that threatened to pull at Emma's thoughts. A figure knelt at the altar, shrouded in shadows, hair falling like a dark veil over a pale face. It raised its head, revealing hollow eyes that seemed to absorb all light, swallowing her hope whole. "You shouldn't have come here," it rasped, and the very air grew thick with foreboding. "Who are you?" Emma shouted, the words tumbling forth in a mix of defiance and fear. "I am the keeper of secrets," the figure snarled, the air crackling with an energy that made Emma's skin crawl. "You seek answers, but answers are a weighty burden." "Enough!" Eric's voice cut through, rising in rebellion. "We don't want your secrets. We want to get out." A chilling cackle erupted from the keeper, sending icy fingers racing down Emma's spine. "Escape is an illusion," it hissed. "Only the brave venture to wield the truth. Only the brave can face the cost." Suddenly, the shadows behind them lunged forward, a writhing mass of darkness that engulfed the door, slamming it shut with a resounding thud. Emma flinched at the sound, heart hammering like a drum in her chest. "Stay calm," she urged, her voice steadier than she felt. The keeper's laughter twisted the air, and a guttural chant began to unfold. "To unlock the power, you must shed your fears, surrender yourselves to the whispers of the past." Emma's eyes darted to Eric, panic mingling with resolve. "What do they want from us?" "Your regrets, your memories, your fears," the keeper chanted, the room darkening further with every syllable. Emma felt ice grip her insides. Old shadows danced before her eyes, failures, mistakes, moments of weakness clawing for redemption. The memories slashed through her like barbed wire, and she could sense Eric's heart wavering beside her. "Don't give in," she shouted against the tide of despair. "Fight it. We can't let them take control." The chant grew louder, echoing off the walls, each word a dagger aimed at the heart of their hope. Shadows curled at their feet, threatening to drag them down into the abyss of their own making. "No!" Emma screamed. "We refuse to be part of this twisted game." Lightning surged through the air as she raised the lantern, its light flickering defiantly. Somehow, it pushed back against the consuming darkness. With a burst of courage, they stepped forward together. Together, she breathed, clutching Eric's hand tightly. "We can break this." But as they advanced, the keeper's gaze sharpened, the shadows recoiling momentarily, sensing power in their unity. "Foolish mortals, your resolve will only prolong your suffering." To her right, the altar shimmered, beckoning them with an aura of secrets that was alluring yet sinister. Emma's mind raced. If they wove the truth against the lies, it might be their only chance. What would it take to harness the truth without succumbing to the weight of its horrors? As the shadows swarmed once more, thick and hungry, Emma knew they had to act fast. With the lantern held high, she took a breath, ready to challenge whatever waited in the heart of the darkness that threatened to consume them. "Step forward if you dare." The keeper dared, as the shadows lunged again, and Emma prepared for the worst. "Will you surrender your fears, or will you fight to reclaim your light?" The next moment hung in the balance, teetering on the edge of choice and consequence. What awaited them in the clash between shadows and light? The shadows lunged, a tide of darkness that rushed to swallow them whole. Emma felt the weight of their struggles, their regrets, thrusting against her mind, clawing at her heart. The chanting grew louder, thrumming like a restless heartbeat in her ears. Every syllable twisted her stomach, pulling her deeper into a vortex of despair. "Emma, we have to do something," Eric shouted over the noise, panic lacing his voice. "Focus. Think of the light," she replied, holding the lantern tighter as the beam flickered against the oppressive dark. As the keeper's words coiled around them, they resonated with echoes of their past. Memories surfaced like nightmares: her father's disappointment, Eric's brother's ghostly face flashing in the shadows below the altar. It was all too much. Emma's breath quickened, and sweat broke out on her forehead as she fought against the rising tide of hopelessness. "What will it take to make you understand? A sacrifice?" The keeper's hollow eyes glinted with a predatory glee. "Both of you must yield." The darkness hungers, it will take what you're too afraid to part with. The shadows inching toward them pulsed with a dreadful urgency. They twisted, curdled figures of anger and desperation, each one bearing the weight of lost hopes. Emma squeezed Eric's hand hard, their fingers locking together in defiance. "No, we won't be your offerings," Emma shouted back, her voice aflame in the chill that surrounded them. "We will face our fears together. We will not let you win." As she spoke, the lantern's light brightened, pushing against the shadows, sending them writhing back. The keeper smiled, sharp like a blade. "You think you can escape this? You do not know the power that rules this realm." With a sudden flick of its wrist, the keeper conjured a gust of wind that knocked Emma and Eric back, sending them sprawling to the floor. Emma's heart raced violently in her chest as her breath hitched. "Get back up," Eric yelled, rising to his feet and reaching for her. Fighting against the surge of terror, Emma scrambled up. They had to keep moving, keep fighting. "We can't let it get to us. Remember why we came here." The chant morphed, growing sinister, swirling around them in chaotic harmonies. "Memories of sorrow, pain of all past, give in to despair. Make this your last." The words clawed at both of their minds, each one wrapping tighter than the last. They were drowning, wading through a flood of their internal fears that spurred and prodded, igniting a spark of overwhelming doubt. "Emma!" Eric cried, voice strained. "I can't hold on. It's too much. Stay with me," she shouted, her breath hitching as she felt them closing in. "We are stronger than this." The shadows pressed harder, the keeper rising to their full height, laughter echoing menacingly off the walls, reverberating through the air like poison. "False hope," it howled as it moved closer. "I'll show you your deepest regrets, your darkest fears." Suddenly, with a surge of trembling hope, she thought of the truth hidden beneath their despair. "Remember our promise, Eric, we'll face anything together. No matter what, let the light of our truth push them back." She raised the lantern higher, and in that moment, a brilliant beam cut through the darkness, bathing the keeper in blinding light. The shadows shrieked, recoiling as the keeper's expression shifted from mirth to confusion, then rage. "You think you can outshine the darkness?" It spat, lunging forward as the light flickered, straining against the weight of the night. Emma felt the light pulse with their combined strength, a connection that was now a lifeline. But just as hope ignited, the shadows surged again, thicker and darker, an endless wave. "Will your light be enough?" the keeper challenged, and as the shadows clawed forward, Emma realized that their battle had only just begun. "Hold on," she shouted, the lantern illuminating a path through the chaos. But could they truly harness the truth and emerge unscathed, or would the dark reign victorious? The altar pulsed ominously behind the keeper, a silent promise of what lay ahead. The air thickened with fear as the shadows writhed and pulsed around them, a living entity hungry for their despair. Emma raised the lantern higher, praying the light would hold. But the flicker betrayed her, dancing weakly as the pressure from the encroaching darkness intensified. Eric stood close, his breath shaking. "Emma, what if it gets us?" he whispered, the sound barely audible over the sinister chant. His eyes darted to the creeping figures, all spectral eyes fixed on them, pulling him further into the depths of terror. "Don't say that, just keep your focus on the light," she urged, though doubt creaked inside her like an old wooden beam. The keeper loomed ominously, its silhouette sharpening against the dim light. "You two believe yourselves brave, but bravery is nothing when faced with the truth you're hiding from," it hissed, its voice dripping with malice with each word. The shadows coiled tighter, drawing closer, forcing memories to the surface. Bad choices, regrets. Emma squeezed her eyes shut, battling against the tidal waves of guilt crashing around her. She could practically feel their fingers grip her throat, clawing at her sanity. "Your pasts are laid bare," the keeper laughed. "All shall know the burdens you carry. Surrender now, and I might keep your memories intact." Panic surged wildly in Emma's chest. "No, I want to let it take me." Her chest heaved. "We have to believe in what is ahead, our future together." But doubt whispered sweetly in her ear, taunting her to give in, to lay down her arms. Eric's grip faltered. Emma, he stammered, pain washing over his expression. She's right. The darkness, no. Emma didn't recognize her own voice as it cracked with desperation. You fight it. We fight it. With every ounce of her being, she pointed the lantern directly at the keeper, and an arc of blinding light exploded from it, illuminating the darkness in sharp brilliance. The shadows hissed, recoiling. The keeper's surprise morphed into fury. You think you can defy me? You will pay for every defiance. It raised its arms, drawing the shadows into a whirlpool of chaos, a growing storm of despair swirling around them. Eric stumbled, eyes wide, heart racing with fear. Emma, look out! A mass of dark tendrils shot toward her, and she barely had time to react. The lantern flickered dangerously again, the light wavering as she struggled to fend off the encroaching darkness. It felt like an eternity, fighting against a tide she couldn't control. Anything to stay out of its grasp. Eric screamed, lunging forward to drag her back. Just as he grasped her wrist, the keeper's laughter echoed like a nightmare that wouldn't fade. Such boldness, he snarled. Fear has a way of hiding in the darkest corners of your soul. Can you truly face it? Emma gasped as shadows clawed at her mind, dragging her into the depths of her fears. Images of her father's disappointed gaze loomed large, swallowing all sense of hope. Eric, no, she shouted as the pull tried to rip them apart. Don't let go. He held tight, their bond solid against the wave of terror crashing over them. I won't leave you. He gritted out, the shadows flickering against his anger. But then, eerily, the shadows began to retreat, swirling back as if compelled by some invisible force. Your spirit may flicker, but this is not yet your end. The keeper hissed, sensing a weakness. Acknowledge your sins and I shall grant you peace. Emma struggled against the weight of the shadows, sensing that her past was resurfacing again, swirling with vengeance in the dark. What are you waiting for? Face it, she shouted defiantly. Whatever they are, we can conquer them. You and I, we own our truths. But the darkness paused, the keeper's face twisting. Then prepare yourselves for the reckoning, it spat. Your truths may be your undoing. The shadows drew closer again, pulsating ominously, each moment stretching into an eternity as Emma's grip on the lantern weakened. Just as fear gripped her heart entirely, an echo reverberated from beneath the altar like thunder. The ground trembled, and she gasped. Something darker was awakening beneath them, something far worse than the keeper or its shadows. Eric's voice faltered, his eyes wide with dread. What's happening? As they stared, helpless, the altar cracked open, a gaping maw of dark void revealing its depths, welcoming them into the unknown. Will you embrace the dark, or fight the doom that looms beneath? The keeper taunted, its voice sharp as ice. Everything hovered in a breathless pause. What awaited them in the abyss? The darkness shifted with malicious anticipation. Emma's heart pounded violently. The next step was crucial. Would they give in or confront the terror lurking below? Everything hinged on that choice. The abyss quivered, shadows writhing with malevolent anticipation. Emma and Eric stood on the precipice of despair, the keeper's laughter echoing like a twisted melody, taunting them. Embrace the dark, and all shall be well. Resist, and face your end, it crooned, its voice dripping with venom. Emma felt cold sweat trickle down her back. We can't give in, she shouted, channeling every ounce of defiance into her words. The darkness may be powerful, but it only thrives on our fear. We'll shine our light so brightly that the shadows have no choice but to retreat. Eric gripped her hand tighter, his resolve igniting alongside hers. We won't let it win, he declared, his voice steady against the rising tide of terror. He looked into Emma's eyes, as if connecting with a shared strength that transcended their fears. Together, they turned to the keeper, the shadows dancing ominously around it. We choose to confront our truths. Emma shouted, her voice ringing strong through the chaos. Show us what you think we cannot face. The keeper's smile twisted into a grimace. Fools! Very well. See how your past haunts you. It shrieked, and with a wave of its hand, shadows enveloped them. Images surged forth, scenarios of deeply buried memories clawing at their minds. Emma felt trapped in the suffocating grip of regret. She saw herself as a kid, always trying to please her father while feeling the weight of impossible expectations. She gasped, her heart freezing. No, you don't control me, she yelled, forcing herself to remember the love that had once existed. The joy she fostered. I am not just my mistakes. The winds howled, and for a moment, the shadows flickered as if fighting against her refusal to succumb. Encouraged, she pressed forward. I accept my past, but it does not define my future. Eric, still breathing heavily, stepped alongside her. And I won't let the pain of my brother's loss haunt me any longer, he exclaimed, and to Emma's surprise, the shadows momentarily gasped, as if rattled. Eric had always carried that guilt, and now he chose to release it. We are no longer bound by fear. Strength surged through them, the light from the lantern pulsing brighter in tandem with their resolutes. The keeper stumbled back as their declaration transformed into a blinding beacon. They stood firm, weaving their shared lights together, creating a brilliant force against the advancing darkness. Step back, keeper, Emma shouted, and to her astonishment, the creature flinched as the shadows transformed, swirling around with violence but losing grip on their hosts. No, it shrieked, weaving in and out of the encroaching light. You'll regret this, confronting your truths. Emma shook her head firmly. No, we're reclaiming them. She felt the warmth of Eric's hand steadying hers. The lantern's flame burst anew, releasing a beam that sliced through the shadows, illuminating the faces of the captured souls lurking around the altar. Join us! A collective whisper rose, but it was now mixed with reluctant hope. The victims seemed to awaken from their torpor, eyes lighting up with the possibility of freedom. Fight! You can break the rules too, Eric cried, throwing encouragement to the lost souls around them. Do not let the keeper hold you captive. The room quaked, the shadows swirling violently as the keeper roared. This isn't your victory, foolish mortals. You're all still mine. But Emma's heart swelled with purpose. No, the truth of our pasts can set us free if we embrace them, she shouted. The light began to burn brighter, its brilliance washing away the remnants of despair. The figures around them shimmered, eyes shifting to the glimmer of hope, and the bond between Emma and Eric surged, its warmth piercing the dark in an overwhelming surge of combined will. Emma and Eric surged forward, lantern held high. We'll teach you fear, they shouted in unison, raising the light higher than ever as it drew upon their merging strengths. The shadows recoiled, and with one final push, the light expanded outward in a blinding wave, crashing into the keeper with relentless force. A furious scream erupted, shattering the air before exploding into 1,000 eerie echoes. Light consumed the dark, shadows evaporating like mist in sunlight, the figures released from their bindings, their despair dissipating with the keeper's vanishing cries. Together we did it, Emma gasped, breathless in shock, but joy swelled in her chest. Yes, Eric shouted, relief washing over him as he took in the vanishing darkness. The air felt different now, lighter, fresher, clearer. The freedom tasted sweet, the laughter from their fellow co-workers rising, echoing through the now free warehouse. Emma shared a glance with Eric, both breathless and wide-eyed, knowing they forged a bond stronger than darkness. As hope rekindled all around them, they turned away and stepped into the light that now embraced the warehouse. The chanting of the sinister rules faded, replaced by laughter and chatter. Emma smiled, heart full as they walked out together, their shadows receding behind them. They had faced down their fears and emerged victorious, now stronger and unbroken. This was the moment they always dreamed of, a new beginning, far away from the grasp of despair. But even in their triumph, that whisper remained, a reminder shimmering in the distance. Don't forget what you've learned. The shadows may retreat today, but heed the light you hold inside. With those thoughts, they emerged, knowing that with courage and unity, they could face whatever came next, together. Okay, you've reached the end. If you enjoyed this thrilling conclusion, you need to subscribe now. Don't wait another second, join our community, so you never miss exclusive stories like this one. Smash that like button, help us feed the algorithm and spread the word. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. We want to hear your thoughts. And please instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who also need to see how it all wraps up. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Let us keep the adventure going.